What is going on, everyone? This is Damon again from CCIDgfx, and today I'm going to do a tutorial based on how I go about making some of my renders that look like this. And most recently, while I was working on this tutorial, I actually came up with a little animation here using the exact same technique, just starting from a different shape. This should be, I believe, is going to be a two-part tutorial. I'm going to go over a lot of the modeling pretty much in this one. In the second part, I may or may not have a guest artist help me out with the texturing and lighting and the camera setup and whatnot. If not, it'll still be me, and I think probably a week after this one comes out, the other one for the texturing will come out. For this animation, it's nothing really complicated. I took the same object, I put it in a cloner, I flipped it by 90 degrees so you get the differ on each one, and then put a plane object in the cloner, and then had the fall off set, I believe, to linear, and then just had the cloner coming towards the camera, and they build out. And to get the camera movement, I actually used GSG Signal. This plugin is phenomenal for looping animations and for a lot of tour visuals that I've done. It's a very powerful plugin, and it's very helpful, so I recommend picking it up. So without further ado, this is the original one that I did back in 2016. And let's take you through a little bit so you can see a breakdown of exactly how this kind of thing is formed. So let's go ahead and turn everything off. Turn off the camera, get rid of textures and tags. So here you go. This was the initial object that I'd modeled for this particular render. And then I threw it a couple of symmetry objects, and then I instanced it once, and I turned it on its side. And that's the basic shape that it created, which is a really cool shape. It's a really cool, complex-looking shape. I also did a couple other ones. Let's see. We got this one. Again, we'll go ahead and we'll turn everything off. Zoom out. Get rid of the textures and whatnot. And that's your basic shape that I got from a single polygon. Actually, I believe it was a square polygon. Let's see, we got another one I was working on. Same basic principle. Turn off the camera. And initially what I did is I took the initial shape and I just scaled it up a bit, and then I added some, I used a bool, I believe, for this. But instead of using the actual the C4D bool object, there's a free tool that I use, is the magic merge. With that, it's pretty cool. You can either combine things or you can use it as a bool. There's also I like to use magic solo when I work with a lot of objects, and then drop to floor, which is also another free plugin. And up here I have my center axis too. Depending on when you're cutting apart objects, you want to center it, in order to line things up when you're using a symmetry object. And then to reset your position, scale, and rotation, which is handy just to have up here for when. So, like, if you move this guy, then you can go, oh, wait, oh, no, I want to go back to the original position, drag it around. And I think one more example is, nope, already shows that one. So let's go ahead and get started. And so we're going to start a new one. Not open, new, all right. And I am going to grab a single polygon. And I like to be able to see my lines, so I'm going to go to Garage Shading, and for this polygon, I'm going to add some subdivision, some segments. Yeah, let's just add another one. So simplify the process. Okay, now we're gonna do this a whole different way. Now, just a disclaimer, I'm not an expert modeler. This is exactly just what I use. These are the tools I use, is the techniques I use to get my renders. This is by no means, proper modeling. I call it dirty modeling. I think people calls it dirty modeling too. I'm not sure. And I think Matt from Brograph actually calls it box modeling. It might not be the exact same thing, but it's basically it's a way to get a desired result without having to go through the process of learning sub D modeling. Sub D is phenomenal. It's great, especially for real world objects and for production. But, if you're just looking to get a really cool object for a render, this is a good technique to go about it. So I'm going to make this editable by clicking this or hitting C on the keyboard. I'm going to go into our line mode, and I'm going to scale on these lines, and then I'm going to bevel them. So we're going to go UL, and if you look at standard, it's going to grab all this, but if you actually click on stop at boundary edges, you can just grab the lines you want. we're going to hit MS, or you can right click and go down to bevel. I like to use a lot of shortcuts. So we're going to hit MS, and we're going to bevel it in a little bit. And then we are going to select these edges and hit T for scale. And I'm going to scale them in a little bit. Hit your scale tool up here as well. T is for scale, E is for select, and then R is for rotation. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into point mode. I'm going to grab these 4 points. And again, I'm going to hit MS, and I'm going to bevel them in a little bit. Then I'm going to go into polygon. I'm going to hit Control A to select it all, and then I'm going to hit MN, or if you right click and go to dissolve, it'll dissolve the lines. So now I'm going to hit I for extrude inner, and we're going to extrude in a little bit. We're going to extrude in a little bit more, and I'm just going to drag this guy up a little bit. And actually, now we can do it this way too. So we're going to hit Control A for Control All, and we're going to go into here, zoom in a little bit. And we're going to hit KK for the knife tool. Actually, let's try something real quick. No, yeah, KK for the knife tool. And we're going to turn off visible only, single line, and select the cuts, because I'm not perfect with this. Hold shift if you want to get a straight line, and then hit E, go into point mode, and it selects it, and you can see it's off by a little bit. So if you zero that out, now it's centered. Select off of that, go back into polygon mode, hit KK again, do the same thing horizontally, hit E, select it, and then zero it out. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go, actually we're going to go back into polygon, they're all selected, and we're going to just select these top guys, and we're going to hit I for extrude inner. And then we're going to extrude a little bit more, but we're going to turn off preserve groups so we get this separation. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold control, and I'm going to grab the Y axis, and I'm just going to drag up. Same as an extrude. Extrude up a little bit. Maybe about that far. Extrude in a little bit more, and just drag back down. So we can get like just a little cool little extra element there. Alrighty. So I think what we're going to do now, in order to, since we're going to put this in a symmetry object anyways, to make the modeling a little less intense, and we don't have to work on multiple objects at the same time, is we're going to get rid of 3/4 of this thing. So we're going to go into our point mode, we're going to grab rectangle selection, we're going to select all of these, and all of these, and now we're just left with this one object. And then if you want to kind of see how that works, what we can do is we can, you grab a symmetry. Now it's symmetry there. Grab another symmetry. Put that one there. Change the direction. And we've got our basic shape back. So go back into our main. And we're going to select this and this. Going to extrude inner a little bit more. And then hit T for scale, scale it out a little bit. Actually, we're not going to do that. I'm going to hit D for extrude, extrude out, and then extrude out again, and find a happy medium to where this object here has a square surface. So I think 12 is going to be good for this guy. And then we kind of just start going from there. So we're going to extrude up on this. We're going to extrude up again and keep 12. Note 12, so you always have that same square to keep it kind of even. That same square. And then we're going to go out again. Actually, we can go on both axes. So hit D, make sure you turn off preserve groups. And, you've got your extrusions. I think for these two guys, we're going to select these guys. We're going to go extrude inner a little bit, and then we're going to extrude out a little bit, and then we're going to do our first bridge. So what you want to do is you want to hit M, B, or right click and go to bridge, grab one point and drag it over to the mirrored point, and now you've got a connected surface. Now we can go back out here, we can grab these, and we can go to 12, Go up. And maybe we'll go out again. Go out. Grab these guys. Actually, we can just, since we have that, we can just grab these, drag them up a little, maybe there. Then go up to 12. Kind of bring these guys in. Do the 12 again. 12 might not even be exactly square. I think 9 might have worked at one point too, but, or 10. 12's fine. We'll go with 12. And this is where things can start getting really, really crazy and a lot of fun, because now it's really up to you what you do with this and where you go with this. So for instance, we're going to go back out here to these guys. We're going to hit that. We're going to go to 12. And we can keep going out on these guys. And we're going to go up. And go up and out. And sometimes you want to try and find a way to overlap them as well. So if we go back inside to these guys, and actually we'll go in a little bit. Hit D. MB for bridge. We'll bridge these guys, and now you've got like a circle selection. You still got these you can mess with as well. Like you can still grab these. D. See if you can get 12 out of it. Actually, we'll just do 12 right from the middle of it. Alright. And then again, just keep going. But I think in this case, we're going to go smaller up. Actually, we're going to go I pull up a little bit on this guy so we get a different shape. And then go up. Now that square might be a little different once you change that size, but that's fine. You just find a happy medium for the square that you want. And then, yeah, you can kind of do the same thing. You just basically, we'll bridge these guys together. So now right now you've already got a pretty complex structure, and you can keep going with it. You can keep just, you know, you can grab these guys, extrude them down pretty small. You know, same thing. Bridge these guys. And you're getting a way more complex structure. We can go back down and we can do, heck, we can even grab these guys. We can grab this. That seems like a pretty good square shape. Maybe extrude in a little bit, in a little bit. Drag out. Find that happy medium square. Looks like we can go with probably 7 on that. That's fine. Yeah, and start, you know, going here. So now you've got, if you look at the top, you can see if it's cleared it. So I usually try and make sure that, like, I clear the next thing and then grab that out. What was that? 7? Yeah, 7 looks good. And then start bringing them up. Now, in this case, this is kind of what I was talking about with the symmetry object, because if you wanted to bridge these two, you probably couldn't really do it easily, you know, because you can extrude it out, and then you'd want to bridge across that, but you can't. So you can, if you want to, I would basically make a copy of this whole thing, turn it off, and then right-click. Actually, you don't need to do that. I'm sorry. Right-click on this, go to Current State to Object, and it'll create a copy. Turn this off, grab this, and that's your whole shape now that you can continue to working with. So for instance, if you wanted to bridge this right here, you grab this, hit MB, bridge, and you can go and split this off again. But so essentially you would want to make sure you had everything you know you were gonna. So if you were gonna do that, you would do it all, so all of them were done that way. Actually, I gotta select this guy over here, and then you do that. And really, I would make sure you're kind of through everything that you want to do that with before you take that route. But this is a pretty cool shape to begin with, so I think it's a good idea to do that, where we can We can start bridging off a lot of these pieces here. Like if we wanted to grab these guys, go up, I think 12 was the one for that one. Do that, get that one set up to bridge, which we can just bridge that one. And then same with these guys. Grab these ones. 12. Grab these. And this is a very quick generalization. I mean, the possibilities, honestly, with something like this are endless. There's really so much. I mean, you can really stretch this. I mean, this is the basic idea of how to do this, honestly. This isn't, you know, anything phenomenal or mind-blowing. But I think it's a really good technique. I like the designs. I like doing stuff like this. But I like also knowing that I modeled it. It's not a kit bashing thing. And I'm not bashing, quote-unquote, kit bashing. I've done tons of it. I think it's great. And especially it's very valuable for production level stuff where you don't have time to sit here and model everything. But if this is just something, you know, you enjoy doing and spending the time, you know, modeling it, I think this is a really fun technique. So we're going to go to that process. We are going to current state to object, turn this off, grab our object, delete, and then we're going to bridge these couple of paths that we had already started. Make sure you got them all. And MB or right click, go to bridge, and select that one. Alright, so we've got our base object here. And now we want to do some detailing. Like we want to add some bevels and we want to maybe add some spaces in. So go into polygon mode and let's do some experimenting here. Alright, so we want, maybe it would look cool if we had spaces in here. Might even do it on a couple of the other ones as well. So we'll grab all these polygons here. And this is why sometimes it helps to do the symmetry method, but again, it depends on your process. And then we're going to hit I, we're going to turn on preserve groups, and we're going to extrude these in just a little bit. We're going to go to the top, we're going to hit MB for bridge, and we are going to create a cool little element there. I think we could do it in a couple other places. Let's give it a shot. Let's see, where would we want to do it at? This doesn't always work, but I'm going to try this one. Because it really depends on a few key factors. Let's see if we can get in there to see our polygons. Alright, there we go. Alright, so let's try this. Extrude inner. Yeah, it's not going to let me do it like that. Sometimes the Fong breaks there. I'm not really sure why. We can try and optimize. It doesn't always work. Let's see. Nah, it's not going to work. No big deal. But we can do the same thing out here if we want. Like we can say, we can grab this. Just going to double check it, and then I'll go back and do the other ones. So we hit I. A little funky because of the angle, but I think that'll work. So let's go ahead and select the other ones. The clicking's got to be quite annoying, and especially with having a mechanical keyboard. All my keystrokes are pretty loud as well. All right, do we have them all? Do we have them all? Oh, a couple more. All right, let's grab these last couple polygons, and we're going to extrude inner just a little bit. Go to the top view, hit MB for bridge, and cut these guys out. All right, that's pretty cool looking. I think it's a good shape. We might even do these little outside guys. Maybe, yeah, why not? We'll just do it while we're add a little bit extra element, and it's cool being able to see through, where it's not all exactly the same kind of shape. That's why it's always good to vary your size too when you're extruding all these. You know, make some smaller, make some bigger. Variation is key with a lot of it, but lighting, texturing, camera position, definitely keys as well. Do we have them all? We have them all. All right, so one more time. We're going to go extrude inner a little bit. Go top view, hit MB, and get rid of these guys. All right, so we have a basic shape here. I think this is a really cool shape. Now I'm going to take you through 3 different techniques you can use to bevel these kinds of objects. There is the traditional way of basically going in and grabbing all of your edges, which a lot of times I'll also go in and I'll clean up a lot of these extra edges. I may not for this purpose, simply because it's just a waste of time, but a lot of times what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll just select certain lines that just seem like they're pointless, and I'll hit MN or dissolve, which, you know, it kind of helps when you're beveling, because you don't really need all the unnecessary. But when you're texturing, it may not matter. Actually, it's going to matter. I'm sorry. I apologize. With the texturing process I'm planning on using for this, which is the same one that was pretty much in this guy, if we go back to the very beginning, revert to saved. No, I said revert to saved. And I'll bring out my Octane Live Viewer, and I'll show you. I did a mix texture with the dirt node in order to get the worn edges, and that's going to work basically on any edge. So if you have those extra lines, it's going to show up. It might look cool. It may look like, you know, the parts, you know, how the parts are assembled, but you see like these lines here, it works cool to a certain point, except for that they were overlapped, but it worked for this aesthetic. So generally what I try and do is I try and go through and delete all of the unnecessary geometry. So for this purpose, I'm going to leave it alone. But so when you're beveling anything, as you know, you can basically just go, you can go MS, or you can go to bevel. And, you know, we'll start with something really small because we have some small edges here. So we'll go with like 0.1. And we'll add 5 subsurfaces, or subdivisions. And then we'll click off and get some pretty nice bevels. It looks great. It'll render great. Let's see, we'll do the Octane. We'll open it up just to test it, because one of them does involve the Octane Live Viewer. Oh, I must have minimized it. There we go. All right, we're going to dock this guy over here. And, you know, this process works. It's great. One caveat to that: it's permanent. You can't change it now. You've done your bevel. It's there. It's on the object. It looks okay. Looks great, but it's done. And just actually to show you what I was talking about with the lines of why you kind of want to go back and clean it up a little bit is, let me see if I can find the texture I used there. All right, so we've got our texture, and we throw it on here. And we had cubic. Actually, it didn't. Look at that. I think it might only happen if you're using the bevel object, but we'll find out. But this actually works. So since we're in this process, let me show you something. I'm going to go back a couple steps. We're just going to copy this, and then we're going to go back before we added the bevel. All right. I'm going to apply the texture. Got the texture on there. You got the worn edges. Pretty cool. I'll take you through how to make this texture in the next tutorial as well, by the way. But you still, it looks great, but we still have the edges. You want to bevel a little bit. Well, one way you can do it also with Octane textures alone is if you go into any Octane texture, you go into common, you see you've got the rounded edge radius. Okay. Now, this is the other thing. It's not going to be good for close-up stuff, but this is where it gets messed up. See, with the geometry, you've got this over here. So it's not perfect, but from a distance, you know, it looks like you've got a bit of a bevel on there. So it's another option to use if you're using, you know, if you don't want to go through and select all these lines or clean this up, is using the Octane textures. But for now, we're not. So the best practice to do this, and again, another reason to clean this up, and I'll show you, is basically, so you've got all your depending on if you select it all or whatever you have selected. If you just have certain ones selected, like, well, UB, by the way, is the ring selection. If you want to select around something, same with like if you want to select those or that. So we'll go here, and what I'll do is I'm going to hit V, go to select, set selection, and then I'm going to grab the bevel deformer. Before I put it as a child of my polygon, I'm going to grab this selection, go in here, I'm going to set my bevel size, and then I'm going to drag it as a child of the polygon, and see, which is great going this route by selecting, using a selection, using the bevel deformer, is it's parametric. You can go back and change it. So, if you're like way out here and you're like, oh, I can't really see my bevel, you can go, okay, well, let's go up to 1. And look, you can actually see it all the way from out here. I mean, that's quite a big bevel, but it's really going to depend on what part of the object you're on. So that is an option for beveling. So since I'm not going to waste your guys' time of going through, I showed you kind of how I clean it up. Again, basically you go into your object, you grab whatever lines you don't want, and you dissolve them. As long as they aren't, crossing something, because you don't want to get rid of that guy right there in the middle of a bend. What, you're not supposed to. That totally just made me look like a liar. Anyways, you don't want to get rid of certain ones because it'll mess up your geometry. But what I will do is I'll go in and I'll grab a couple of these corner edges that I want to bevel off, that I don't want being hard squares. Probably actually going to speed this part up, but you get the general idea. So we're going to go in and I'm going to grab all these hard edges and I'm going to bevel them. Alright, I believe I got all the ones I wanted. So we're going to hit MS, and we're just going to bevel them, and we are not going to, we're actually going to not do it that much either. Let's see. Probably would have been better to do them differently, but regardless. Anyways, so yeah. So I am actually going to just select all my lines, and I'm just going to add the bevel to it. Just so we have a bevel on here for the purpose of looking at it, because it looks horrendous without the bevels. So we're going to go 0.5, 5. And this will make your scene a little heavy, though. You got to kind of debate as well, depending on your speed. But this will make the scene a bit heavy. But it looks like we got a decent bevel. We might pull it back. There we go. That's a better bevel and all that stuff. All right. So now you have a decision to make. Like, okay, aesthetically, do you want some lights in it? I think what we might do, like I did on one of the other ones, is since we've got this open end, I think what I might do is we're going to turn out the bevel deformer, which is also great for editing. We're going to grab this, UL, grab the loop selection. We're going to grab that. Actually, we're just going to drag down a little bit to give us some space. Oh, that's not what should have happened. But let's see. Down, UL. Interesting. I think when I did the collapse, some of the geometry may not have lined up. It's not a big deal. Can we just drag this down? Now, if you get this happens a lot. If you get this where they're blue instead of orange, that means your normals are reversed, and that's what happened because I dragged down. I shouldn't have done that. Okay. So I think we're going to do this a different way. We're going to grab the edges instead. We're going to do a loop selection on the turn off boundary on this one. Grab this, and then just drag down that way. There we go. That's exactly what I wanted. And we're going to create another element. Another one of those kind of elements like this where we extrude it out. Preserve groups, please. Thank you. Extrude it out a little bit. Make sure we're not overlapping any. We're going to hit UY to grow your selection. And then we're going to hit UL and hold control to get rid of this selection. And then we're going to hit I, try to preserve groups, and just extrude in a little bit to make sure, again, we're not cutting off any of our geometry there. Go to the top, hit MB for bridge, and just go through and bridge all these guys. And this is just, again, personal style aesthetic. This is, you know, so you get a little more parallaxing elements when you're looking through stuff, especially when you have them cloned. I think that should have been none of them. Interesting. Have everything selected. Alright, so what we'll do is instead we'll go to the bottom camera so that nothing's in our way. We'll go to MB again. Just double check and make sure it's actually getting rid of them. It is. So we're good to go. You can actually see it updating over there in the live viewer. Alright, and that's all of them. And what we kind of want to do is, let's see, okay, so, actually, so, all, and then, should actually do them all anyways, even the new ones. There we go, yeah. Alright, so there we go. So we've got our main element here. And again, I'm going to get rid of this because we don't really need this right now because we're not doing any lighting and texturing. So here's our main element. We've got some bevel on it. Now what do we do next? Alright, well, I think we should throw this guy in a symmetry object on the vertical so we can double these guys up. So go up here, grab a symmetry object, and drag this guy in there. Go. And already you can kind of see we've got a pretty insanely complex looking object here. So sometimes what I'll do is I might just take one of them. So if I grab one polygon, one version of the shape, and we're going to actually, since this one, no, it is the top one, it's what we're looking at. All right, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to scale it up a bit. I'm going to turn these bevels off just so it's a little easier to work with here. Scale it up, drag it down in between, and there you go. That's already a pretty insane looking structure. And it's going to look different every time you do it, and that's the joy of it. You can do this with cylinders, you can do this with tubes, you can do this with pyramids. It really depends on the look you're wanting to get. Like, I went with the square object. If you go with a triangle object, you're going to get something that looks more like this. Which, let me break this one down for you real quick. Turn off the camera. This is all that is. That entire animation that I showed you, that some of you may have already actually seen. Get rid of the things. Okay. And I did that from, same thing. I started with a polygon, but I made it a triangle shape. And I extruded everything out from here. And same process. Everything's exactly the same. As you can see, though, I cleaned up a lot of the geometry in this. So yeah, that pretty much covers it. I think this is really cool. I like doing this stuff. It's a lot of fun. I mean, you can just go nuts with it. I mean, you can build cities. You can build props for videos, for animations. There's really no limit to what you can do with this. So, as I said, what I'll do is I will go ahead and I'll go through the process of like setting this up, compositing, setting up the camera, setting up the lighting, setting up the textures. In the next tutorial. If not me, it may be a guest person. Hopefully that person still wants to assist me with this. But yeah, so a few shout outs, as I mentioned before. I am part of the motion design community. They actually posted my last tutorial, which is on my personal YouTube page and theirs. So thank you very much. It's a huge community, all walks of life, all levels of skill in there. As well as you can also find it on the Facebook. And I'm also part of the Brograph Slack, another bunch of great guys, a lot of industry guys that are working in the industry daily. And these guys have also some great tutorials and some great plugins. Like the Luminous plugin actually just saved my butt in a project where I had to make headlights for a vehicle. And it was phenomenal. It worked great. And definitely thanks to Matt and Dave for helping me out with that. And again, check out Grayscale Gorilla. They have a lot of really great products, and I am not affiliated with them whatsoever. I just like their products. Signal is a very powerful one. And if you get a chance, check out my Instagram. I'm pretty much CCIDgfx everywhere. On YouTube, Facebook, all that stuff. So, yeah, any questions, comments, concerns, also any suggestions